Welcome to the Sins of Chicago Nickelodeons. Spicy, right? All right, so what we're going to do this evening on our virtual tour is to walk through Chicago's Uptown neighborhood to the former Lakeside Theater. And as we do this, we're going to make 3 stops along the way. And as we do that, we're going to learn about Nickelodeons, or also they were called cheap theaters. And we're going to hear why some Chicagoans claimed that these cheap nickel movie houses would lure you into a life of sin. And as we make our way underneath here, let's go ahead and start that discussion of Nickelodeons, or cheap theaters as they were sometimes called during the early part of cinema's history. So cheap theaters, they're called nickel theaters, they're called 5-cent theaters, they are called Nickelodeons, they're called nickel dumps, and some newspapers referred to them as vicious theaters. So these Nickelodeons had lots of names attached to them. So nickel movie theaters, the reason that they are called this first, and you can probably guess why, is that the price for going into one of these facilities or these buildings was 5 cents, as you can see with the 2 arrows there pointing at the admission price, both to the side of the Nickelodeon storefront and to the left right there with one of the placards in the front. So they boasted these cheap prices of 5 cents admission, which means they were very popular with Chicago immigrants, or immigrants who had come to the Chicago area. Also very popular with working class citizens here in Chicago. People who did not have a lot of extra money, or maybe even the interest in going to see entertainment like opera or ballet and the like, right? So for these groups of people, the immigrants and the working class, Nickelodeons represented a few things. First off, a moment of pleasure away from the harsh working conditions in which they usually found themselves here in Chicago. Sunday was often the only day that these people had off, and so Sunday they would use to frequent these Nickelodeons. Secondly, Nickelodeons and these cheap theaters were very much opportunities for community, for women to engage with other women, for women to look for men, and vice versa. So they're not only cheap, of course, they not only provide community, but they're also very accessible. Let me put some figures for you on screen really quickly. So 1907, we're talking about Chicago here. There were roughly 150 cheap theaters or Nickelodeons in the Chicago area. By the next year at that same time, it was double that, 300. So it only took a year to double the accessibility of these theaters. And in Chicago, the daily attendance at these theaters was roughly 200,000 people per day. Now, nationwide, that would have been about 2 million. So Chicago is doing really well as far as filling these theaters and people coming in and paying their nickel to see these movies.